tell you that this is what's known as GoToMeeting. G-O-T-O-M-E-E-T-I-N-G, GoToMeeting. It is a paid subscription type of software, but I do know that you can, at least you used to be able to get a 30-day, let's see, maybe I can mute Dawn's here. Click the mute. There. Is that better, Matt? I hope so. Much. Okay, yep. I'll turn Dawn's back on when we need to. It is kind of a little, it gets a little reverby. Anyway, this is GoToMeeting. A lot of you that have had online classes before are probably familiar with Wimba. I actually like GoToMeeting a little bit better than Wimba. It allows me to basically walk you through my screen here in a minute, which I think you're going to find is a lot handier to do. You can probably, you've been able to in the past, get a free 30-day subscription to GoToMeeting. I mention this only because I know that several people on here, I know that both Dawn and Matt are team leaders, and Janet, I'm thinking you're probably filling in for your team leader, Katie, so we've got basically people here who are pretty well into this team project. You may find that GoToMeeting is a handy way to contact your team members. It's a little bit more robust than Skype, although Skype certainly works as well. And there's a lot of other things out there. I know a lot of people like Adobe Connect. I've not used Adobe Connect very much. I know what it is. I've used it once or twice. But like all old people, once I get something I like, I just hang on to it. So, you know, that's just how us old people are. Other than that, I guess it's probably time I'm going to turn the video off unless someone is really liking it, in which case I'm still going to turn it off. But questions so far, I guess, if you want to just hit the chat box, it's maybe a little bit easier to do that. I can see what's going on in the chat box. Otherwise, if I don't see any questions, I think we will just move on forward to this and maximize your time tonight. Yeah. All right, well, don't see any, so we're going to do that. I am going to turn this video camera off. Rebecca, I'm sorry. Rebecca, how are you tonight? Rebecca is on the phone. Rebecca, there's a little chat box down below. If you can hear me, just let me know, I guess. Hear me, I guess. We're probably waiting for Rebecca's phone connection to get going. I'm going to turn the video cam off and we'll just keep moving forward here. People ask me a lot, no, do I have to call in? Okay. There you go. Wait and see what happens here. All right. So, why do I wait till week 7 to do this? What could possibly be the point in waiting to week 7? And I suppose the obvious answer to that question is that weeks 1 through 6 are really all about the individual project. Week 7 is where we start the team project. Most people in this class, this is not your first college class. If you're in this, you're somewhat familiar with research papers. I think the way this one is set up, with week 2 being an annotated bibliography, which is a lot of research, week 3 being the interview, which is more research. By the time you get to week 4 rough draft, for most people, if you've done week 2 and week 3, it was really just taking the stuff that you had in those weeks and turning it into a paper. And then the peer reviews, you know, I think everyone in this group was very active in the peer reviews, and so you have realized that they're a lot more fun than you thought they were going to be. You not only get to have people take a look at your paper, but you actually get to take a look at other people's papers, which frequently can give you an idea of what's going on here. All right. So with that said, I'm going to focus on the project. And the project, of course, this is, if you've seen, you all are very familiar with the online. You can see that I have a lot of classes this quarter. I've got a couple classes in practical math that I teach and a couple classes of the principles of management that I teach. I'm just going to go into one of the two sections. This is the first one, so it's easier for me. They're both identical. For those of you that have ever wondered where does all this stuff come from, there's probably 20 sections of this class every quarter, and they all have identical discussion forum posts. They all have identical assignments. Everything's the same, and yet I'll hear every quarter from someone that says, well, you know, your class is too hard. I do not create these classes. I do not create the assignments. I do not create the class. They're prepackaged, if you will, by Rasmussen, so they're all pretty much the same, which is why I'm stuck, and some of you have figured out I end up using announcements and buried stuff in the lessons and that, because I actually don't have editing rights on any of the stuff in here. I just you know, go in and try to make it as understandable as possible. So when you log in, you usually see something funky like this for this class, a little scrolling marquee, which if you look at it long enough will make you sick. And from there on, I'm going to go to lessons. I'm thinking by now, most of you have found where the lessons hide out. Okay? You click on lessons, and you'll notice my screen's a little different than yours. I get to see all the stuff at once, but even when you're in lessons, at the very bottom, you've got a folder called Course Materials. And within Course Materials, you have actually all the homework for the entire quarter. So you've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the individual project, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks of the team project. And then your discussion forum links, which really don't do much of anything for you at all. But why the team project? Why am I bothering to do this with a team project? The real honest answer to you on that is because, like most of you, I went to college and I never really cared much for team projects. I was not a big fan of team projects. It seemed like every team I was on, there were 1 or 2 people that did all the work. There were 1 or 2 other people that were just kind of free riders. And it makes it a lot of work. And the people doing all the work, you know, feel like they're just getting taken advantage of. And so you're going to find that the solution to that, at least for my classes, the solution to that is going to lie with the team leaders. And that's why I'm glad we've got a couple of them on the call tonight. And people watching the archive will quickly figure out the difference between a team leader and a team member. To compound this project, if it wasn't bad enough that you had to do a team project in college, it has to be a virtual team project. Now, when I first started teaching this class, I thought, well, gee, a virtual team project, that should be a piece of cake for all these college students. They've got Facebook, they've got Skype. They're all intimately familiar with all of these wonderful, you know, electronic communication tools, and they can text each other, and there shouldn't be any problem at all. They all live in a virtual world. Of course, what I have found is that most college students, even though you may be really good at using social media for social things, you haven't quite gotten to the point where you're comfortable using social media for school things. And I can understand that. I mean, it's called social media, not work media and not school media. It's just social media. But I would strongly suggest to those of you that are on this call and those of you watching it as an archive, when you get into your team project, you can use the team forum to communicate if you want. You can use the course email if you want. But most of the really successful teams have figured out some other way that works for them to communicate. Some people, like I say, go out and actually take the 30-day free version of GoToMeeting. I've had several teams that have had good luck with Google and Google Docs and what's the one that Google does now? I never know, like Share. I don't remember what it is. But some people use Skype. I've had teams use Facebook the entire time. That's really kind of up to the team. You know, if the team leader has a preference, Google Drive. Thank you, Rebecca. If the team leader has a preference and the team members can all go along, that's great. The trick to making this work as a team is to find a communication method that works for most of the members of your team. Now, that being said, you will find I'm a realist. Is every team going to have at least one member that says, well, I don't have a phone, and I don't have email, and I don't have a computer, and I can't get on, and I can only do my homework on Sunday night, and I can't really participate? Yep, every team's got that member. And some of you are listening to this now going, oh my God, how many times has he taught this class? A lot of times. And so what I can guarantee you is every team's going to have at least one member that just basically has 101 reasons why they can't participate. Don't worry about them. Deal with the ones that can participate. You know, as we all know, life is full of people that don't want to participate, and at some point in time, you just have to say, well, that's how it's going to be. For the rest of you, though, for those people watching this on an archive, if you want to be involved in this team project, what I can guarantee you is at the end of this, it's going to look phenomenal on a resume. One of the things that I hear from employers all the time is they want people who can work in teams. One of the things that you're going to find being very common in the 21st century is the virtual team. We've moved into a global economy. We've moved into a global workplace. We don't just have one building in the middle of downtown St. Cloud where everyone works. I've had people in other classes that have told me even when they, at their jobs, if they're in a building that houses several hundred people, they don't even hold face-to-face meetings anymore. People just do virtual meetings from their desk. So if you can develop a virtual team skill, it is going to look extremely good on your resume because it is truly a 21st century skill. So I'm going to stop there for a minute before I just whip through the project. Let me ask one more time. Questions, anything that I haven't covered in a general nature before we get into specifics, anything you would like to ask? Yes, I do have a cup of tea off camera. This will look good on the video. Wow. I should probably ask, are you all still out there? Yeah, okay, good. Well, yep, all right. Wanted to make sure. Well, yeah, because I don't know. One of the downsides to this is, of course, I have no idea, and I guess with anything virtual, I'm sending stuff like crazy. I have no idea. What was the free webinar meeting place called again? This particular one that I'm using is called GoToMeeting, GoToMeeting, and I know in the past, other classes that I've had, people have been able to get in and download a 30-day free trial version. And since this course, since the project only lasts 7 weeks, or 5 weeks, I'm sorry, that's 35 days. What if only one person has participated this far from my group? Matt, that is a really good question because actually you happen to be going to get 2 new members. And in fact, well, this worked out well. Rebecca, say hi to Matt. Matt, say hi to Rebecca. Rebecca also is in a team that only had one other active participant. So Rebecca, you and Nate are actually going to move over to Team 2, which has Matt and Veronica, I want to say. I just have an initial B, and I don't remember what the B stood for. Matt, does that sound right? L-A-N, last name was like Lancier, Victoria, thank you. Well, I have 50-50 chance there aren't that many B names. So, yeah, so Matt, I'm going to move 2 people from Team 4 onto your team. It just kind of worked out that way, but I think you're going to find that both Rebecca and Nate or Nathan, Veronica are going to be really good additions to your team, and so I'm thinking we will have a really, really strong team on that. Dawn's team is already very strong, and Janet, the team you're on, looks like everyone in that team participated as well. So it just seemed to be an odd quarter for me. One of the sections I had 4 teams, and all 4 of them had a lot of participation. The other class I had 4 teams, and 2 of the teams had a lot of participation, and 2 had not much. So we will make sure that the people that participated are on a team that's going somewhere. So, and that's really just, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be fair. I can tell from, by the time we go through the drafts and the peer review, which people are going to participate, which people aren't. And if you have those people that are non-participants, I try very hard when I build these teams to not end up building teams with people that are going to bring the other team members down. I am very sensitive to the fact that, most people are in college to learn something, and they don't want to be on a team where things are just being drugged down. So, and Rebecca, you and Matt, you guys should see that move probably in the next day or 2. I've got it written down on my little cheat sheet. I just haven't gotten around to doing it. For those of you that live in Minnesota, I got to spend the day today putting seal coat on my driveway, so you know what a stunningly fun day I have had. But I look pretty clean. I'm not all covered with black stuff. All right. Any other questions? Good questions, though. I appreciate the participation. So good. I'm in Minnesota. Had I known that, Rebecca, I would have given you like 10 points extra credit to come seal my driveway. Yeah, that's a joke, by the way. The school frowns on jokes like that, apparently, so we don't do that anymore. All right, well, let's get rid of this video again because it's just in my way. I don't know if it's in your... Yeah. Yeah, that didn't stop me, Rebecca. All right, so... yeah, there you go. All right, team project. What are we going to do in the team project? I'm just going to go through this real quick. I know everyone has been able to look at this. Let me shrink this thing out of my way. Part 1, team project, part 1. What is the team project about? I need to put this in the video. I need to make sure that I say this because inevitably every quarter I get 1 or 2 people that assume the team project is the same thing as the individual project. It is not. It is a completely different project. It's set up similarly but very different. Okay? What are you going to do? In the team project, you are going to examine and assess. That's educational phrasing for study something. Examine and assess. Okay. Management practices. What are we going to examine? What are we going to assess? Management practices. What about management practices? How they have changed over time. Okay. This is why, for some of you that have been through here and looked, you will notice down here it says you select an organization that has been in business for at least 20 years. The reason you need to pick one that's been in business for at least 20 years is because you're examining and assessing changes over time. If you pick an organization that's only been in business for 2 or 3 years, you're not going to have a whole lot of time to do an assessment on. Now, if we just stop there, it would be awfully vague. there are 4 specific things within management that you're going to examine and assess. And most books are going to call these the 4 functions of management. Management plans, and we just did discussion forum on planning. Actually, we're doing discussion forum on planning. Management organizes. Now, some textbooks would call this staffing. Organizing, in other words, figuring out who you need to do what job, what tools do I need, what resources do I need, what human capital do I need. Leadership, which should not be confused with management, totally different thing. Leadership, actually leading this charge. And then control, which there again, most people, control is kind of an odd word. It has a negative connotation. Most people prefer the word feedback. So for this textbook, they use planning, organizing, leadership, and control. Others will use planning, staffing, leadership, and feedback. Same basic concept. So you're going to pick a company that's been in business for 20 years. You're going to examine how their 4 functions of management, the planning, the organizing, the leading, and the control feedback, have changed over time. Okay. Totally different project. Is that making sense to everyone, or do I need to spend a little more time on that? Okay, Dawn's good. Shannon's got it. Matt and Rebecca, all right. You will be the people in your team, like I say, you are going to be the people in your teams that are going to sort of be counted on when you get someone that says, oh, I wrote my initial paper on blah, blah, blah. I think we should pick that company. What works best for this project, okay, and this is, like I say, I'm sharing this with everyone that watches this archive. What works best on this project is a company that's been in business long enough that it's had some turnover in management, some changes in top management. Okay. Companies that have had the same management for the last 20, 30 years, you're not going to find a lot of changes over time in these 4 functions because the people themselves haven't changed. You need to find a company that was going in one direction and suddenly shifted gears and then maybe shifted gears again, for whatever reason. Sometimes Apple makes a good choice for this. You've got the Stephen Jobs years, then after we fired Stephen Jobs years, then we've got we brought Stephen Jobs back years, and then we've got now we can't bring him back because he's gone permanently years. Apple can be an interesting company for that sort of thing because Jobs obviously had a very different management style than some of the other people that have been involved with Apple. But it's totally up to you. There again, I mean, the company that your team chooses is your company's choice. So really the only criteria is that they've been in business for at least 20 years. Now, that leads me to the next thing, which is what's the difference between being a team member and a team leader? Because we've got a couple team leaders in this group and a couple team, yeah. Apple's an interesting study from an ethical standpoint because you can pretty much do both sides of that too. Difference between a team member and a team leader. Very little difference. I do ask one, I guess I should say this. Every week there will be only one submission per team for the team assignment. So Matt happens to be a team leader of Team 2, which is going to have Rebecca and Nate and Victoria in it. The only person who will actually make submissions for weeks 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 will be Matt, or whoever Matt delegates that to. One submission per team. So that's the first thing I expect from the team leader is the team leader makes a submission. I don't really need all 5 team members to make a submission. I suppose that's probably obvious to most people, But the way I'm looking at it is you guys are supposed to be a team. Inevitably what happens is if your team members all start submitting, I get 5 different papers each week, which then makes me wonder exactly how much of a team you guys are, because if you've got 5 different submissions from one team, that just seems odd to me. So the first thing I would tell you as team leaders is make sure your other team members are not making submissions. Well, then the question becomes, well, how do my other team members get graded? There's a good question. They get graded based on your, as the team leader, the team leader's assessment of their participation. That's probably the biggest job of the team leader over and above being a team member. Part of leading that team is going to be to assess participation. Now, most of the time, and I'm saying this with all understanding that, you know, there are going to be people watching this as an archive. Most of the time, you've got 2 types of participation. You have the people that participated 100%, and you have the people that participated 0%. They're very easy. The team leader simply sends me an email every week saying, you know, Jimmy, Bobby, and Susie participated 100%. Billy and Becky, sorry, Becky, Billy and Mary didn't participate at all. The only thing that becomes tricky for the team leader is what do you do when someone partially participates, and here I have to tell you that is up to the team leader. If you think it's 70%, shoot me an email, tell me it was 70%. If you think it was only 40%, tell me it was 40%. Now, for the people listening to this archive that are not team leaders, they're saying, well, that's not fair. What if my team leader doesn't like me? And I could go on the fact that life's not fair, but we won't do that. I am also expecting each team member, what they're going to submit every week, rather than the assignment, what each team member is going to submit to me each week is an assessment of their own participation. So, for instance, since we have both of you on the call, Rebecca will now end up being a team member under Matt's team. At the end of week 7, Matt's going to send me the assignment for week 7 for his team. I will grade that assignment. It's worth 40 points. Let's assume Matt's team gets 40 points on that. Everyone on Matt's team that Matt says participated 100% will automatically get the 40 points. Everyone on Matt's team that Matt said participated 0% will automatically get 0 points. But let's say Matt says Rebecca only participated 70%. Well, Rebecca would get 70% of the 40 points, which would be 28 points. But Rebecca also gets to send me an email telling me what she feels her participation was. And I know you're going to find this odd to believe, but most of the time you're going to find the team members and the team leaders are very close. If Matt tells me Rebecca participated 70%, Rebecca might tell me 75, Rebecca might tell me 65, but it's going to be very close. If I see big discrepancies, then I have the team leader and the team member work that out. So I don't just take what the team leader says. I do factor in what the team member feels their participation was as well. But I've had very good luck with this. I've been doing this for probably 8 quarters this way in this class, and it's always worked out very, very well. The people that are participating are happy. They know that they've gotten the same grade as the rest of the team did, and the people that aren't participating, you know, just accept that that's what they go. So let me stop here and see if there's any questions on that. I know it's a lot of information, and of course this will be out there posted as an archive so that you can look it up. Any other questions? All right, Dawn's still good. Tells me to leave. Yep, that's all right. Me too, Janet. All right. Well, we will keep moving then. We've really covered the bulk of it. Team organization. Team organization. I don't want to put too much in this video that's going to tell people how they should organize their team, because each team finds its own method of organization. However, what I will tell you I have found works pretty well. Okay. Either organize your team by assigning one of these 4 functions to different individuals. So Matt and his team, which is now going to have right now 4 members, Matt may say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll take planning. Rebecca, you can have organizing. We're going to give leadership to Nate, and we're going to give control to Victoria. That is certainly one way to organize it. You know, you get 4 different writing styles, but it really helps in the research area. Another way that I've seen to organize it is if you pick a company that's had a lot of turnover. I think someone last quarter, 2 quarters ago, picked Disney. Disney's had several different CEOs. They organize it by CEO. One team member took, you know, a CEO from the 60s, which is probably Walt. Another team member took his brother, Roy. Another team member took Eisner, you know, and then went through each one of these, you know, how did Walt do planning, organizing, leading, and feedback? How did Roy do planning, organizing, you know, how did Eisner do these 4 things? You know, that's certainly a way to do it as well. Some teams like to organize with, well, one person will write and one person will do research. I've not seen that working as well for teams, to be honest with you, because inevitably the writer is waiting on the researcher, and so the writer ends up feeling like they're getting everything really late in the week, and then if the research isn't good or if the citations aren't good, then the writer feels like they're having to fill in extra work. So, but here again, yeah, not my call. I watch what's coming in. I'm available for questions. If I see a team going down the wrong road, I obviously will say something. But you know, part of this learning process is figuring out how to handle a virtual team, and so I kind of let it run from that, and I'm hoping that's working for everyone. All right. I think I beat part 1 to death. It goes pretty quick after this. So part one in a nutshell, find a company that's been in business 20 years, realize that you're dealing with changes in how the company, and changes in management practices, and realize that the definition of management practices are the 4 functions: the planning, the organizing, the leading, and the control. That's part 1. Part 2, get to part 2. I've been on part 1 so long. Part 2 is almost identical to week 2 of the individual project. It is again an annotated bibliography. What I will tell you though is this: each team member, each individual team member needs to come up with 6 items. So on Matt's team, that means that Matt's going to come up with 6 items, Victoria's going to come up with 6 items, Rebecca's going to come up with 6 items, Nate's going to come up with 6 items. That's 24. Then the team will get together during, well, it must be week 8, and take a look at all 24. You may find a couple duplicates. You may find a couple that as you look at them, you say, you know, I really don't like this anymore. I don't see it going anywhere, or I see this sort's better than that sort. By the time Matt sends it in to me, he may only have 18 usable resources. Okay, but I want to make sure on this, people misunderstand this. They frequently think that the team only gets to turn in 6 resources, a 6-item annotated bibliography. That's not true. Each member on the team turns in 5 or 6 items to the team. The team then goes through those items. So, for instance, Dawn's team has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 active members right now. Dawn could end up, her team could end up with 30 annotated bibliography items that they're then going to have to go through in the back end of the week and figure out which ones of the 30 they want to keep and which ones they don't. Dawn may end up only having a a 20-item annotated bibliography by the time she sends it to me, but she will have started with 30. Is that making sense, or am I just making this more confusing? Don says, yikes. Yikes what, Don? But Don, it's really only 6 a person. And then the team, as you think about it, this will be one of the really, really good storming sessions in the team. You've gone through the forming, a little bit of I know you are, a little bit of norming, but this will actually be the brainstorming, because everyone will come in with their 6 items, and to be very honest with you, Don, at least 1 or 2 of your team members will only come up with 2 or 3, and you and I both know that. You probably even know which one. But, you know, it still works well from a team to go through it. It really starts building some cohesiveness on your team. And to be honest with you, it makes it a little easier for the team leader, because here again, if everyone's supposed to turn in 6, if you get a team member that turns in none, that's pretty much 0 participation. If you get a team member that only turns in 2, that's clearly not 100%. So it's geared for that. So it's worked in the past. Here again, though, when all else fails, like I say, send me an email or get hold of me, because if there's something that's not working, we can adjust. That's the beauty of online, is we can adjust. Part 3. Part 3 is a little bit different. Part 3 in the individual project was the interview. Part 3 in the team project can be an interview, but it does not have to be an interview. Here again, what I found works best, if you've got 4 members on a team, maybe assign 1 or 2 team members to find an interview, and a couple other team members to find other things that are called primary data. Okay, week 3 or part 3 of the team project about primary data. Anything that comes directly from the company or directly from one of the company's leaders. So if you find a speech that the CEO gave, even though it's not an interview, it's a speech, that would be considered primary data. One of the really great sources for primary data is the SEC 10K report. That comes directly from the company. If you look at the front of the 10K, you're going to have what they call a management discussion and analysis, management DNA. That is written directly by the company, about the company. It is a fabulous source of primary data, and since they crank those out every year, you could assign a couple people to look at those, and you would be able to see changes over time. Okay? Not that I'm telling you you should use a 10K, but nudge, nudge, wink, wink, hint, hint, it really is a good tool. Okay? And you might find other primary data things that you like as well. Company newsletters would be primary data. You know, anything that's firsthand. You know, what's not primary data are blogs put out by some guy sitting around in his pajama that just doesn't like Target, and so he gets up every morning and writes a nasty blog about Target. Not really primary and not really very useful. Wikipedia is not primary. I'm not sure what Wikipedia is, but it's not primary data. Okay? After that, the project just rolls. Week 4 is or part 4 is a draft. I don't even need to click that up there. It's a draft. And there is no peer review week, because who would peer review it? You're already on a team. So the assumption is that you all participated in writing the draft. There's really no need for peer review. I will end up reviewing your draft. And this is where you will find I will do my best to get you fast turnaround. If you happen to get me your draft on a Friday, I don't wait until Sunday or Monday to grade things normally. So if I get your draft early, I will be happy to look at it early. I understand that the last week of the quarter is short. So if everyone turns in their draft on Sunday, I will do my best to get comments back to you by Monday, but keeping in mind the last week of the quarter at Rasmussen always ends on Friday. And you'll want to remind your team members of that as well. A lot of people get used to this Sunday deadline. The last week of the quarter at Rasmussen always ends midnight on that Friday. So if your team is planning on having that extra weekend to pull things together, boy, that's going to not work out too well at all. Right? But other than that, you know, what will I look for? It will be very similar to the individual paper. You know, do you have a strong opening paragraph? Do you have a strong thesis statement? You know, what are you trying to show me? The body of the paper will obviously be those things that have to deal with how management has exerted control, what they've done for organizing, what management's leadership style has been, and that sort of thing. Oh, Matt, what should we aim for this one in length? I'm sure what the directions are going to say is the same thing, 5 to 8 pages. So I will tell you it's the same thing, 5 to 8 pages, not counting the cover page, not counting the references, would be the minimum. There is no maximum. Pragmatically, Matt, what I'm going to tell you is most teams end up with about a 15-page paper because you've got 3-4 people out there doing research. You've got more people writing. You'd be amazed. You'll spend 1 page easily on the opening paragraphs and thesis, a couple pages on each of the 4 functions, and easily a page on conclusion. So I would have to tell you you're probably in 10 pages, 10 to 12 pages, and sometimes more depending on how many quotes and that you throw in. So if you live with the 5 to 8 minimum, I don't think you're going to have to worry because unless you end up in a team that doesn't do anything for outside research, you're going to have, your trick is going to be, you know, someone's going to get tired of typing. Okay? I rarely get papers that have any problem with the minimum length, not on the team papers. The team papers are usually phenomenal. How much of a focus should I put on others' APA? I'm not sure what you mean. I guess, Matt, my answer to that question would be twofold. Number one, as a Rasmussen employee, I have to remind everyone that APA is the Rasmussen required format. If I get materials not correct, should I fix it? Well, let me put it this way. You're going to want to turn in each week the best assignment for the team that you can. If you get the material from other people early enough that you feel you can send it back to them for them to fix it, that would be preferable because they need to learn. You can also feel free to remind them that there's an online librarian as well as campus-based librarian, and of course the writing lab. There's all the APA stuff in there, NoodleBib, although that doesn't help you with in-text. Usually what I think you're going to see happening, Matt, is you're going to have 1 or 2 people that aren't as good at in-text citation, and whoever's doing the writing in your group, and if it's you, you're going to end up going back to those people saying, I really like what you wrote, but I need your in-text citations. Please tell me where you got it from. If you learned anything from the peer reviews, it's that there's a wide range of APA and writing skills in this class. I'm not sure if that answered your question or not. Probably as politically correct an answer as I could give you. Got it. Good deal. Okay. Other questions, because I really don't have much else. I mean, we'll keep going. The team leaders will end up sending me emails. I'm on. Most of you have probably figured out by now I'm online most of the time during the day. If you send me an email during normal daytime hours, you usually get a reply pretty quick. You know, if it gets later at night, no, I know, contrary to popular opinion, I do not stay up 24 hours a day looking for an email. Maybe I should, but I don't. Nor do I have my computer set to alert me when I get one so that I wake up in the middle of the night. Anything else? Rebecca, Dawn, anything that you guys would like to know? Janet? We covered everything that we could possibly cover and more. Okay. Well, and like I say, whether you are on this call live or whether you're watching it as an archive, any questions at all, please just send me an email. Let me know what it is. My goal is to make this team project, because like I say, I know that team projects can be onerous for people. My goal is to make it as useful to you as possible. I think you're going to find the topic being the 4 functions of management is a great topic. It's really the core of what this class is about. The individual paper on ethics and corporate social responsibility is nice, but the 4 functions of management really gets to the core of what this class is about. And so I think that most people, what I found in the past is most people come out from this team project going, geez, I really thought it was going to be terrible. I really dreaded it. And by the end, I really enjoyed it a lot. I wish we could do this more often in other classes. So on that, if I don't see any more questions, Matt, you're very welcome. And like I say, just start letting your team members know what's going on. Rebecca, I will try to get you and Nate moved in the next day or two. Dawn, have a good night yourself. I'm going to shut off this archive.